Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the major stories of the day. Our first story is about Brexit. The House of Commons yesterday passed the Brexit withdrawal bill, setting the stage for the United Kingdom to leave the European Union on January 31st. To talk more about this, we have with us Anish, who has been following this issue. Anish, thank you for joining us. So, after 3 years after the vote, and after so much of complication last year, so many elections, the vote has finally passed the House of Commons. So, what are the next stages as far as Brexit is concerned?
No, of course, it is not an act yet.
Right.
So it has to go through the House of Lords and get the Queen's assent. Now, the opposition, which does have a sizable presence in the House of Lords, will try to scrutinize it, but that won't be enough to not get it passed.
Right.
So that is not going to be a problem. So the UK is set to live on the 31st. Thing that needs to be watched out for is the 11-month transition period that will stay 11 months only.
Right.
The bill will actually also take the Parliament's powers to extend the 11-month period. So it has to, everything that needs to be sorted out within that transition period will be done with, should be done with, by the end of December this year, basically. So, so some of the things that needs to be looked out is how the free trade agreement that, so in the political paper that the political statement that UK and EU in their previous negotiations they put out,
Right.
they have actually put up the fact that they want to go for a free trade agreement to replace the European Union's arrangement for customs and trade and all of that, even movement of people. Now, how is that going to look like is not very clear, because one of the first problems that comes up is the customs check. Even with a free trade agreement, you need to have a customs check. What European Union's customs union did was it just took away all checks.
Right.
Now, this will not be happening. So where will that customs check happen? For the time being, it will be between the island of Ireland and the British island. Now, in the middle of the sea, basically. How is that going to work out is not.
So there won't be any boundary between Northern Ireland and the Republic.
Not for the next 4 years, at least. So the next 4 years, until 2024, there will be no boundary between the Northern Ireland and Ireland.
Right.
That is an agreement. And after that, Irish legislature, not the British Parliament, the Northern Irish legislature will have the power to extend the, and it is kind of like an extra transition given to
Right.
Northern Ireland. Now, even if we are to consider that it will only stay until the end of 2024, it doesn't explain how these things are going to be worked out, because they do not want to keep any kind of land borders even after 2024. And even until then, the technology to actually do the customs checks, where it is going to be, where the ports are going to be, is not very clear. Going ahead, Britain will be the one who have to negotiate more, because for the European Union, British trade is just a very small percentage of their trade volume. While for Britain, it's about nearly half of it. 49% of their trade volume comes from European Union.
Right.
So how they're going to deal with that, Britain has to compromise much more than it has actually thought it would. The deal, if you have noticed, it's not very different from Theresa May's deal. So we're looking at probably unbundling and restructuring of the economy, including the massive public sector enterprises like the railways, National Health Service, all of that. So we are looking at a very challenging 11-month period. The 3.5 years that we have seen for so long, with all the political wrangling and back and forth between the opposition and the conservatives, that is nothing. So the 11-month period is where we are going to see the most action.
So you're predicting that there's going to be an increased neoliberal assault, so to speak, in the coming months.
The Tories will definitely try to do that. The Conservative Party will definitely try to do that. Now, we have to see how the opposition is going to react to it, especially the Labour Party, which is going to have a leadership election by next month. And we're not very clear how that is going to go out. Depending on the leadership, we will see how cooperative or how resistant they are to. But the Tories can definitely bulldoze a lot of their way into a very neoliberal Britain for the next 5 years, and that is very clear.
So the other question is concerning Scotland. So Scotland has been one of the areas where there has always been a strong opposition to Brexit.
Yeah.
And there was, of course, a referendum which was not successful. So how do you see things developing in Scotland?
Well, that depends on how things develop in Northern Ireland. Now, if the Northern Irish model is a success, now this is the kind of two-edged sword that Tories have put themselves on. If it's a success, Scotland will ask for that. They will want to be in an arrangement that puts them more closer to the European Customs Union than to Britain. If it's not, then Scotland will definitely demand for, the Scottish nationalists especially, will demand for a second referendum, which is something that they are already started calling for. The Scottish First Minister Sturgeon has demanded that there needs to be a second referendum if we are going out of Britain, because Scotland cannot be dragged into, along with the Tories, whatever. Now, that will definitely pose other kind of nationalist issues, like Wales is also next. So this is going to be difficult for the Scottish nationalists, because if unbundling or restructuring of the economy works out and taking down private sector works out, then that is going to be difficult for the Scottish, because they cannot then run their welfare enterprise or welfare state in the same way that they are right now. They're doing it right now.
Thank you so much, Anish.
Yeah.
So it looks like more challenging times lie ahead for the people of the United Kingdom, especially the working class. And moving on to our next story, the US House of Representatives passed a resolution on Thursday to restrict President Donald Trump's powers to declare a war on Iran without prior approval of the Congress. The resolution is non-binding and, to be effective, needs a similar vote in the Senate. The recent rise in hostilities between the US and Iran after the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani by America has raised the possibility of a full-fledged war. Donald Trump had threatened such a war in case Iran retaliates. While Trump did not initiate any retaliatory action after Iran's strike on January 8th, it still does not completely eliminate the possibility of a war. The US has around 60,000 troops in the Middle East, with 5,200 of them in Iraq alone and around 1,000 of them in Syria. Iran has substantial influence over both these countries and has given the call for the withdrawal of all these forces. The House of Representatives resolution asks Trump to terminate all the military operations against Iran, except those in self-defense. There were 224 votes in favor of the resolution and 194 against. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called Trump's drone attack on Soleimani a provocative and disproportionate act. That's all we have in this episode of the International Daily Roundup. To know more about these stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching.